The Sasuke retrieval arc is one of the best arcs in the Naruto series. It shows 5 Konoha ninjas trying to rescue Sasuke after he left the village with his Sound 4. But there is a member of the Konoha 11 that always resented them for not taking him in this mission, and that will be Shino. In Naruto Shippuden, Shino's always sulky about, well, you didn't take me last time, right? You guys just kind of abandoned me here. And when they go after Sasuke and Naruto Shippuden in the Itachi Pursuit arc, Shino's always saying that to Naruto and to the others. But of course, this was because, well, Kishimoto had to choose a certain number of characters. He couldn't just throw every single side character into this arc, otherwise it wouldn't really make sense. And even still, most of the Konoha 11 members got something to do in this arc. Even Sakura had a participation trying to bring Sasuke back before he even leaves the village. The only ones who do not participate are Shino, Tenten, and Ino. Lee shows up later, but he does show up. We had the 5 main guys in the rescue squad, and we also get the Sand siblings. So, well, Shino kinda got the short end of the stick here, and it's justified in universe that Shino was actually in a mission with his dad. And if you think about it, Shino's dad is a Jonin member and the leader of the Aburame clan, one of the renowned clans of the Leaf Village, and Shino was in a mission with the guy. So this means that Shino was in a very high level in terms of strength and of being a ninja in that part of the story. So what would happen if Shino actually went with a squad during the mission? Now, I see 2 ways of doing this what if. The first one would be what if he just replaces Kiba, which was the member from his team that went in the mission, and the other way would be to just add him into the team and just make it a 6-man team. And we can do both ways. But first, I want to talk about how Shino would fare against each Sound 4 member individually, because this will make things easier as we go along. Starting off with Jirobo, and Shino wouldn't really have much trouble against Jirobo. I mean, Choji was by far the weakest member of the rescue team. Sure, he had to cheat a lot to win the fight, eating those pills and getting 100 times stronger than his base. But Jirobo was definitely the stupidest fighter in the Sound 4, and his powers wouldn't really do very well against Shino. First, because Shino is very strategic during his fights. The 2 big fights he gets in the Naruto series against Haku and then against Kankuro, Shino depicts a level of strategy that we only saw with Shikamaru in part 1. He can also handle his own in taijutsu and speed, so he could pretty much dodge everything Jirobo would throw against him, and I don't see Jirobo doing anything against Shino's insects. We see time and time again that whenever Shino's insects actually hit someone when they are sworn by them, they lose the fight pretty much immediately. When that happened to Kankuro, he lost the fight. When that happened to Zaku, he lost the fight. Well, Zaku kind of blew his arms apart before that happened, but still, he was afraid the insects would get to him. So this is essentially the win condition for Shino. Can he make the insects hit the enemy? If so, he wins, and Jirobo would not be able to avoid the insects for too long. Even in Curse Mark 2, he's not the fastest guy out there. Sure, he is strong, but Shino is a long-ranged fighter first and foremost, and Jirobo can throw very big rocks. This is one of his specialities, but Shino can get out of the way of those. He can also fly on an insect cloud to get out of his range. Now let's get to Kidomaru, and this is much more interesting. First, because it would be cool to see the spider guy versus the bugs guy, just this thematic insect fight. But Kidomaru is a much more difficult opponent. In my opinion, he is the strongest member of the Sound 4. Now, Kabuto says Sakon is, but I'm gonna get to Sakon later. Kidomaru has long-ranged attacks first and foremost as well. He can produce arrows in Curse Mark 2 and other kinds of throwing weapons without the Curse Mark 2 to throw against his opponents using those gland fluids of his that harden whenever it leaves his body. And then he can also use that fluid to create a case around his skin to protect himself against blows, and that casing was able to tank a 64 palm Gentle Fist attack from Neji. Pretty impressive, to be fair. Then again, Shino's strategy would be completely different because he has means to hit opponents from very far away. As a matter of fact, Shino doesn't even have to see where the opponent is. As long as the insects can detect Kidomaru, then he's good. And I see Shino being far superior to Kidomaru in terms of strategy, even though Kidomaru is no slouch. So this fight would be decided by whether or not Shino could come up with an interesting and good plan to catch Kidomaru off guard. The problem for Shino is that Kidomaru's arsenal hits very hard, much harder than his own arsenal, but I can still see Shino using clones such as the insect clone that he used against Kankuro to dodge those very powerful attacks, and also using his own insects to counter the small spiders that Kidomaru used to swarm Neji. We then get Tayuya, and Shino's got this one, because first and foremost, Tayuya used her summons a lot, and those summons, they could create those weird-looking ghosts that drain chakra, but then again, Shino's insects also drain chakra, and the summons are massive, and the insects would have no problem swarming them and draining their chakra. Shino could stay out of range and create strategies just like Shikamaru was. Granted, his strategies wouldn't be as good as Shikamaru's, but still, his insects are more versatile than Shikamaru's shadow, and also, whenever Tayuya uses her flute genjutsu, Shino could easily break himself out just by using his insects, and the insects could break him out of the genjutsu. But then again, I see Shino winning more times against Tayuya than otherwise. And then we get Sakon, and Shino absolutely stomps Sakon. What will Sakon do against Shino's insects? Is he going to summon the Rashomon? It's not gonna work, man. Is he going to split his body into two? Sure, man, go for it, but Sakon is very much a close-ranged fighter. Shino is definitely going to keep his distance and use his insects to his advantage. Sakon's not gonna have any chance. Kankuro absolutely negative diffed Sakon and Ukon, and Shino beat Kankuro in the tuning exams, meaning, yeah, there's absolutely no chance here. Even if Sakon manages to catch Shino in the jutsu, he kinda fuses himself with the enemy's body, it wouldn't really work, because if Kiba can come up with a counter for that, you know, using the kunai against himself, Shino would definitely do the same thing because he's much smarter than Kiba, or maybe he could come up with a better counter, such as using the insects that literally live inside of his body to attack Sakon cells within his body. That could be pretty interesting. And then let's talk a little bit about Kimimaru. Of course, Kimimaru is by far the strongest member of the Sound 5, if you want to call him that way. And Shino doesn't really win here. Now, granted, Shino is probably not the best opponent for Kimimaru as well. First, because Kimimaru's not slow, but he's not a speedster either. Base Kimimaru was very much relative in speed to base Rock Lee, and a base Rock Lee that was fresh out of surgery. He wasn't able to outright dodge Rock Lee's attack with the first gate, but he managed to block it, so there's that. But the insects, well, blocking them will not work. And if Shino manages to hit Kimimaru with a swarm of insects, then you can use the Curse Mark level 2, but you're just gonna get drained quickly, especially someone like Kimimaru that has ninja disease and is not in a terribly good condition when you just speak about physicality. So I see Kimimaru winning most of the encounters here, but if there's one person in the entire Konoha 12 that can actually beat this Kimimaru, except for like Curse Mark 2 Sasuke and Gaara, even though he kind of lost the fight, he just outlasted Kimimaru, and then perhaps Naruto with the QB Chakra Cloak with one tail, and that's very debatable. These characters are very debatable. The other person that would have a chance against Kimimaru would be Shino, although a slim one, but much better than nothing. So now let's explore the what-if scenarios. The first one being the easiest one, which Shino replaces Kiba. Kiba was not terribly impactful before his fight against Sakon. He's the one that kind of does the least there. Choji at least broke them out of Jirobu's barrier. Neji managed to track them with his Byakugan. Naruto was using the Shadow Clones when they encountered the group to fight, you know, in those group fights. And of course, Shikamaru was leading the team. Now, granted, Kiba was also tracking them with his smell, but Shino could probably do the same with his insects, just using them as scouts going ahead. Now, maybe you could argue that the first time they catch up to them with Shino there, things would be different, and they wouldn't be caught by Jirobo's barrier, or even later when they just encountered Tayuya and Sakon, if Shino was there, they could have beaten them before Kimimaro arrives and takes Sasuke away, meaning that they would succeed in the mission, but I don't think this would happen. Yes, Shino is powerful, but those team fights, they were kind of evenly matched, and even if Shino is more powerful, the Sound 4 can probably hold their own a little bit more. If Shino was there in the place of Kiba, he would just fight Sakon instead of Kiba. Of course, as I mentioned before, he would beat Sakon, and then he would probably rush towards Naruto's position. But then again, if Kankuro, Kiba, Temari, Shikamaru, and even Lee and Gaara didn't go to the Valley of the End, they didn't go after Sasuke and Naruto after their fights were won, I don't see Shino doing the same, perhaps because they wouldn't be able to track them very well, because they were just way too far, or because he would be out of chakra. Now, he probably wouldn't even be out of chakra, and Kankuro would just arrive there and Shino would have won the fight already, and it would be kind of anticlimactic. For Kankuro, he would just see the guy that beat him in the forest in the Leaf Village, and oh, okay, you beat the guy, cool, what do we do now? They could try and go after Naruto, but I don't think they would catch up to him in time if Kakashi wasn't able to do so. Now, granted, Kakashi had to leave from the Leaf Village itself, which was much further away, and you can maybe say that Kankuro and Kiba didn't go after Sasuke after their fight in the original because Kiba was pretty hurt and Kankuro had to take care of him, but Temari and Shikamaru, they were in pretty good condition, especially Temari. I mean, Shikamaru had a broken finger and low chakra, but he was fine, all things considered, so in this scenario, I don't really see a lot of things changing, unless Shino and Kankuro manage to catch up to Naruto fighting Sasuke, and then, with a 3-on-1, Sasuke will have a pretty difficult time, because Shino and Kankuro are actually pretty powerful. Of course, not as powerful as Sasuke was in that point, they would never win a 1-on-1, but with Naruto helping them 3 versus 1 in the Valley of the End, they would lose, but I don't really see this happening. Shino being there instead of Kiba wouldn't do much to affect the story, it would just be a different character, and granted, I think Shino is cooler than Kiba, but the Kiba moment in that arc was pretty cool too. The two-headed hound was an interesting addition to his arsenal, and he got some pretty good moments in the fight against Sakon. So now let's talk about what if Shino went with the other 5 in a 6-man team? This would definitely change things, because now they have an extra man to spare in one of those fights. Maybe Shino's going to tip the scales, huh? Now, out of the Sound 4 fights that we got, 2 of them were very much optional. They were chosen by the 5 guys that were rescuing Sasuke. Choji asked everyone to fight against Jirobo, and Neji said, I will fight against Kidomaru because my jutsu is effective against his webs. And I don't really see things going differently here. I think they would still want to fight those battles one-on-one for the specific reasons. Choji because essentially Jirobo insulted Shikamaru and called him fat, and Neji because of the powers that they had and his power worked against Kidomaru. But this means that when they catch up to Tayuya and Sakon taking Sasuke again, in this situation, it would be a 4 versus 2. And now there's a very high possibility that they will be able to defeat Tayuya and Sakon before Kimimaro arrives to take Sasuke away. If Shino can defeat Sakon by himself, as we've established, then if he's in a team with 3 more members that are pretty powerful against him and Tayuya, Sakon and Tayuya, they just lose here. Kiba and Shino will have good teamwork because they were in the same team for a while, and Shikamaru is pretty intelligent. He would be able to use Shino's powers with effective tactics and eventually corner and grab Sasuke back. Now, Tayuya and Sakon wouldn't really be killed in this fight. Even in the original, Naruto was able to grab the gourd Sasuke was being kept on for a brief moment, and then Kimimaro arrived and ruined everything. But in this situation, with Shino helping them, I see them doing it before and running away from the 2 Sound 4 members. But of course, Kimimaro would show up and he would say, if you guys don't get Sasuke, I'm gonna kill you, to Sakon and Tayuya. They would be very scared, and then the three of them would pursue Shino, Shikamaru, Naruto, and Kiba back, you know, from where they came from. And eventually this team fight would also break out. 3 versus 4 now, but Kimimaro makes up for the difference, that's for sure. With his help, Tayuya and Sakon would be able to press their advantage and eventually corner the 4 members of the Leaf Village. But then Rock Lee would show up. Because you remember when Kimimaro was fighting against Naruto, Rock Lee shows up and says, Naruto, you go ahead, go grab Sasuke. And this will happen more or less the same time Sasuke wakes up and goes away. So, Sasuke would leave, and that would be Kimimaro, Tayuya, Sakon versus Rock Lee, Shino, Shikamaru, Naruto, and Kiba. One of them would have to go after Sasuke, and it would obviously be Naruto. So the other Leaf Ninjas would try to buy Naruto enough time to get past the enemies and go after Sasuke, and they would probably succeed at doing so. Shikamaru would come up with something clever. Naruto will go after Sasuke, and they will eventually end up in the Valley of the End while this team fight is happening. And the Leaf would lose here. Without Naruto's help, it's a 3 against 4, and now granted, Rock Lee is back. He's not at his full strength, and Kimimaro is pretty powerful. They would begin to lose, but remember what happens next. The Sound siblings show up. They would show up here, and then it would all of a sudden be a 7 against 3. And we know that Temari and Kankuro absolutely stomped Tayuya and Sakon. So they would be crushed, and then Gaara showing up. Well, he was pretty evenly matched against Kimimaro, but now he would have help from an army of other ninjas, so Kimimaro would get very much overwhelmed and dealt with quicker. Now, there's a possibility one of the members of the Leaf Village, or maybe one of the Sound siblings except for Gaara, would die in this situation because Kimimaro's jutsu is just so dangerous. That forest of bones he uses before he dies is absolutely insane, but I don't even think that would happen because nobody even died in the original, and they were fighting in more difficult circumstances. The bottom line is that Kimimaro would get overwhelmed and beaten. And then, this very large squadron of Temari, Gaara, Kankuro, Shikamaru, Kiba, Rock Lee, and Shino, they would be tired, yes, but they would be able to go after Naruto and Sasuke. And as they are much closer to them than Kakashi was, they would be able to arrive in time in the Valley of the End. And if they show up, then Sasuke, he can't do anything here. It's 8 against 1. If he had to sweat blood in order to beat Naruto, he's not beating the army of the Leaf and Sand Ganons all at once. And then, well, Sasuke would be brought back to the Leaf Village. They would collect Neji and Choji, who almost died in their previous fights, but Sasuke would actually be collected as well, which is a good thing. They succeed in their mission. They will probably encounter Kakashi along the way because he was actually going towards the Valley of the End, chasing them with his dogs, and Kakashi will probably be very proud of Naruto and the others, especially Naruto because he's the one he actually knows in that group, and berate Sasuke once more. Now what actually happens after this would completely change the entire story. Sasuke going to Orochimaru is one of the most pivotal moments in the Naruto series, and if that doesn't happen, the rest of the story would just be completely different just because of the butterfly effect. But yeah, adding Shino, one of the most powerful Konoha 12 members, into the rescue squad would actually have made a lot of difference in this scenario because they would have succeeded in their mission, therefore changing the entire course of the Naruto story. Or maybe something different would have happened. This is what I came up with, what I thought was more likely to happen, but I'm very curious to hear what do you guys think would have happened if Shino went with him, maybe replacing Kiba or just going with him in the 6-man team. Tell me in the comments below. Also, like this video if you enjoyed it, subscribe to this channel if you like this type of video, and watch this other video right here. All those things really help me out with the YouTube algorithm, and thank you so much for watching.